Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a very, very special edition of Office Hours. This is a celebration of 5 years. 5 years consecutively doing a show every single day, never missing a day since March 25th, 2020. Now, what does that mean? That means we've answered over 60,000 questions. We've spent over 3,300 hours on air, which means with the prep time, that's about 5,600 hours in production. Over 600 volunteers have been trained over crew roles, panelists, the folks who are managing the shows, the folks that are on the back end doing the admin stuff, and it's 100% volunteer driven. Every single person who has contributed to Office Hours has done so freely, and 10 of those people on crew, not just the panelists, but 10 of the people on crew have participated in more than 300 productions. If you're part of this community, this show is for you. Thank you, and we're going to have a lot of fun today. If you added up all of the hours that each individual had, crew, panel, etc., it's over 80,000 hours volunteered. That's a tremendous amount of time and a testament to the community that's been built around Office Hours. And, well, it's all thanks to here, Alex Lindsay's here with us. He is the founder, the papa bear of this whole operation. So I guess we all have you to blame, as Grant likes to say.
You know, the blame started getting spread out pretty quickly. So I would say that, it was not how I had planned it. There was a bunch of things at the beginning. Obviously I have a strong commitment to building more events online because I think it includes more of the world, so it gives more people. I watch in many places where I've worked where people are kind of in a vertical where they just don't see what's going on in the rest of the world because we don't have good tools to get it to them. Obviously have done a lot of training in Africa where everyone feels like they're just not getting the same flow. And so I'm always committed to trying to figure that out. So when COVID started, I saw that people are going to need to do that more. And I knew that they would not be I felt like they probably wouldn't be as successful as they could be without, a little bit of pointing in the right direction. I needed to learn how to use Zoom. I had almost never used Zoom before. I used it a decade earlier and it wasn't quite working right yet. And I was like, okay, fine. And so I had to learn how to use it because I had clients asking me how we're going to do events over Zoom. And so I needed to figure that out. And then I felt like, well, I can, kind of restart some of the stuff I had missed in Pixel Core, and we could all do this for a couple weeks or a couple months. But that was about the length of what I thought. And I thought it was going to be office hours. People were going to ask me questions. If you look back in the old days of Pixel Core, you'd see Ask Alex, which was just another version of that, which is just me just sitting there answering questions. So it's something I had done before, and that's what I thought would happen again. And what was interesting is what's different from a stream that you're doing by yourself. And when people start showing up in a Zoom meeting, there was a whole bunch of people there. And it turned out that a lot of them were smarter in different verticals than I was. They knew more. And so I found myself very quickly not giving advice, but asking questions and just in a discussion. And then the whole thing just started to build. And everything that you see now was mostly, someone said that someone else should read the questions instead of me. And so that we have question readers, and then someone else should cut the show, and then we had that, and then someone else should do this. And so each piece of these things, every volunteer position that you talked about was because someone said it'd be really good if we had this one other thing. And I was like, I think that's a great idea. You should do it. And or someone said that to them. And that's how everything has kind of evolved very organically, in a very agile way out to what we have today.
And it's so amazing that I get to experience it every single week because I host the Friday show. And so I get the white glove service, and it makes it really easy to host. Preparing for this show, it's like there were volunteers that coming out of the woodwork at me even harder. Like they're asking me, how can I help? How can I help? And it's that, and the spirit of the community marching towards we're going to get there someday, the north shining star that we'll maybe never get to, but the global conversation where no one's left out is, that's the thing that people are adhering to, and it's pretty fantastic. As a matter of fact, we actually have a little clip from that very first show right before it started. I think the guys on the back end have that. It was the first one we had queued up. This will be pretty cool.
Hi guys, I'm testing the process of adding everybody as panelists instead of just having people listen. I don't know if you can hear me, so let me know if you can put it in the chat. Bum, bum, bum. Okay, great. Just want to make sure. I'm turning it on a little early. There's no pressure. Theoretically, this thing can hold 100. So we'll see how small everybody's windows get if we do 100. We won't do 100. Well, I don't know. Maybe we will. Right now, I think we're going to do about 30 is my guess. But maybe 40. 30 or 40 people, I think. People are kind of showing up here.
And just like that, the question started. Amazing. Like out of nowhere. Turn this thing on, and then you said later in that broadcast that you weren't anticipating it, but 40 or 50 people showed up on the very first day.
Yeah, it was just a simple tweet. I just tweeted out like, "Hey, I'm going to do this thing called office hours." It just felt like the thing to do, and I tweeted it out. And I think Grant has the illustrious distinction of being the first person to jump into the event. We looked back and we looked at like, when did people sign up, and Grant was number one. So, but many people that are here today came to that, that first show. So, but there was, again, 40, 50 people. I barely understood how Zoom worked. You can kind of see my confusion in the, like, I don't understand what's going on here, where all these, it's a very different structure than what I was used to with other platforms. And so, it was me learning, and I would say that I'm learning all the time, even today. Like I learn something new every single day when we work on this.
And I went back and looked at actually the Mac Break Weekly from the day before the first office hours. You were on that show. And I remember you being introduced by Leo as the person with the best looking camera shot in all of Skype. And then I look at the frame today, and it is miles different. And it's part of the group that's around us today that's marching forward, one of which is Grant Whitehead. Grant's here. And we could take a look. I think we have that on 3. We've got Grant's very first. He was chiming in a little bit on a question. I think this was about people at home using their cameras for remote contribution.
I think Tim was bringing up something there that's interesting, and that is now with social isolation, we can't get into the people's houses or wherever, getting them off to a location. We need to use what they have, right?
And what's interesting about that is,
so we can go around a little bit here. Grant, you were on that very first show, and then how has your life changed since then? And tell us a little bit about how office hours has impacted you.
Yeah, look, it's good to be here, by the way. Thank you. It hasn't changed at all. I'm a lot poorer than I was. And so really, I'd just like to take those 5 years back, and I'd be richer, and I'd have more time. I would have had more sleep, all of that. One of the things Alex said about that Ask Alex times that he did before office hours, and I was tracking those and loved those. And it was because of those that I purposely got on Twitter then and put on push notifications for Alex. So as soon as he would post, because sometimes he would do, I'm doing Ask Alex in 5 minutes time, and so the only way really to know was to have those push notifications. And so I was lucky enough to have the push notification ready that when this one about office hours came out, I was first to register with Zoom, the Zoom registration for the meeting. And so since then, I mean, I think I probably did about 3 months every day, and which was a bigger ask then because it was in the middle of the night. But of course, we didn't have a lot going on at that time. And so some of the key things really was just connecting with people instantly. As at the moment this kind of happened to the world, we were all comparing notes about how to do these things. And honestly, I was the same as Alex. I hadn't used Zoom that much. And if you had asked me at that time, hey, I want to be able to see, I want to get 49 people on the screen and I want to do a video conference, I want to be able to do all that now. Had you have asked me that then, I would have been like, you're crazy. It probably is about 6 people you could max out with Skype or something like that. But to think that you could have and be able to see a 7x7 grid was so foreign to me at that time. So the fact that we're now doing that, and then thousands, and we're doing 30,000 people in Zoom now, aggregating a bunch of meetings together. So it's pretty amazing. Yeah.
And I had to pick on Grant because I found that picture, that clip of him in that first office hours earlier, and I just thought to myself, oh man, I got to get him. So really amazing stuff. Thank you for having notifications on, and thank you for being in a time zone that has pushed us towards more and more evening shows so that we get to do fun stuff like this. We'll keep going around the room and get to hear some more stories about some folks who were pretty instrumental early on. I also saw Bill on some of the early days, and I know we've got Bill Davis is here, Andy Carluccio's here, Guy Cochran's here, David Brady's here, Tony Mobley's here, George Kennedy, Marty Atias, John Wallace. It's a tremendous panel that's assembled, but we do want to get to your questions. So we're going to dive into a few of those, and then we're going to keep telling stories. Let's go into the first question, Bill.
Sure. Zach Jeffers is the first one from the Great Pacific Northwest. In the last 5 years, what's been the most interesting topic in the group, single or repeating, that isn't about AI or Zoom?
Grant, kick us off.
Yeah, well, that cuts it down a little when we take out Zoom, because it certainly was a big conversation point. But one of the things that a bit of a claim to fame for me is, since I've been around since day one, is tracking all of Alex's stories. And so I wish that I had all the data
too.
on
Like, I'm about to tell a story. I'm like, yeah, have I told this one before? Is Grant going to say, oh, this is a good one? I'm pulling up the story. Yeah.
I think probably one of the biggest hitters, like one of Alex's greatest hits, would be a tent in Vegas. I think that story has come up probably a good 50 times, maybe 100 times. Whereas talking about having a tent in Vegas, no one else was saying they needed a tent, and then of course he had a tent.
Because it wasn't just that no one was saying they needed a tent; it was everyone was making fun of me for asking for a tent. That was the best part.
And then it rained. And this is the thing, but that's a catchphrase that Alex used, and then now I use all the time, is that we plan for rainy days. We don't plan for sunny days, but we plan for rainy days. And that is an example of the type of things that has been amazing. As we've talked about, particularly event production, but often what happens is the discussion goes into event logistics and how to think about your event, not just how to run the tech, but some of that bigger stuff. And that's been extremely valuable. Like, as I talk about being poorer, ultimately I'm actually way better off, because I'm a better operator now because of office hours.
It's amazing. I was in a meeting with someone else who is also part of office hours, but unrelated to office hours in this meeting. And twice during the meeting, Alex Lindsay came out of my mouth. It was either, action equals possibility greater than circumstance, trust arrives on foot, leaves on horseback, risk equals consequences to the power of probability. I actually have a running list. I'm up to about 70 now, of like, oh, that's a really nice way to say that. The word economy is fantastic, and we're all a little richer for it. But Alex, go ahead.
I think that for me, my favorite subjects are generally many of the ones that happen on Sunday, when we're just kind of, for those of you who watch that don't watch on Sunday, Sunday's kind of this, we just are very philosophical, and we talk about the industry, we talk about office hours, we talk about things, and we chew on them for a long time. And so I really enjoy every day, and every day has its own flavor to it. And I enjoy the kind of the rapid pace of the morning show. I think that I love these kind of long philosophical questions that are around how we do our business, or how we interact with others, or how we do those things. And so those are some of my favorites.
Got another office hours OG in the house, Guy Cochran.
so it's definitely cloud. I mean, gosh, the evolution in AWS. I actually just ran into a guy from Teradata set my AWS account 12 years ago. We were bonding on the cloud 12 years ago, and to see that evolution as to where we are now with 4K and HDR and this show right now we're doing the cloud. Just all the support, because in the early days we would jump into after hours and we'd only have like an hour or something like that, just pound at it. So they're lists, especially Jonas and Tucker, and just really be on it until we cleaned that and it came out of
All right, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, so for me, there were two real themes that I remember looking back at those early days. The first one was how Alex involved the education community in the shows. That was incredibly powerful because remember, as the pandemic was shutting everything down, one of the biggest groups that was disenfranchised was all the teachers who had classrooms full of students and they suddenly had to do remote education and there was nobody there to help them at all. And so I remember just day after day on the education hours talking to people about that. I think I still have a drawer with a bunch of Pile headset mics in there because we were trying to find something that was like under $10 that a teacher could use to do something remotely in education. And that spirit of office hours trying to help people was huge. The other thing real quickly was that I came out of baseband video and I'd spent a lot of my career working around the peripheries of video. And suddenly, video over IT, video over IP, this idea of we're no longer going to be in the broadcast world, we're going to be using computers for everything, was as disruptive for me after 30 years in the business as anything I've come across. I remember being at NAB one year and somebody handed me a Cat5 cable and said, here's your video feed, and plugging it in, and I was expecting it to act like a BNC, and as soon as I plugged it in, I would see something, and I got nothing. And I went away, and I asked somebody something, and I came back, and suddenly my signal was there, and I realized in that moment, the game has changed. You can't rely on the old rules. You have to change, Bill, and you have to understand that the rules are going to be different going forward. Office hours has been instrumental, I think, for a tremendous number of people in confronting that reality and saying, the game isn't the game that used to be. The game is going to be new. You better get on board quick.
And that really has been the recurring theme, the repeating theme that I keep hearing is that we're at the bleeding edge of all of these technologies so that normal people don't have to be. We're trying to get the scars, make the mistakes, try all of the things so that way when someone comes to us in one of the 60,000 plus questions that have come in, they're saying, hey, I need help. And we've got that life experience that we can share with them. It's pretty powerful stuff. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing and the most impactful has been the bonding in and outside of the boxes that we're all in right here. The one example I'll give that stands out is those couple days in the desert with OH space launch. That was monumental in seeing how all of this comes together in the moment and really drives the product home or drives it to space. It was that I just got a reflection the other day on this. It happened not too long ago around this time, and there was a big shot of the whole crew. I was a couple pounds heavier then, but it was just a wonderful time working with everybody and learning and gaining the trust and building friendships.
Let's go on to Marty, one of our regular audio gurus in the house tonight. Go ahead, Marty. How many microphones did we collectively buy?
And only yesterday did we actually get a study that said that the microphone makes a difference. Like that,
everybody needed to know in the early days, and we spent a lot of time on that. It helped a lot of people, helped me tremendously. I mean, everything that I've learned while participating in office hours has just been tremendous. And the association and the community that, everybody here is just so close and willing to jump in and talk to people and collaborate and do things together. It's just really fabulous.
There's also the ripple effects of the people that are around office hours. People start to ask questions about, hey, your Zoom looks really good. My Zoom doesn't look really good. I'm sick of you hogging the ball in all the meetings. Like, you get your ideas through, I don't. Like, I see it in business. I see it in totally non-production related roles. The impact that this community has when there's IT professionals and there's people who are in industries couldn't be further removed from media and production, who are saying, how can I up my game and how can I be better? Because they realize that what's at the key is the human element of all this. It's the communication piece that really makes it so powerful. Another thing that's so powerful is some of the technology that's on the back end helping us run this. And we owe a debt of gratitude to Andy Carluccio, who's with us. And Andy, the next question has you in it. So we'll let you chat with us a little bit after this next question. Go ahead, Bill.
I'm going to try to keep a straight face during this. Jonas Dottel in Germany says, Andy, could you please explain Obvio to Grant? Please.
Grant, could you start us off on this one?
I can give a bit of context.
One of the best moments of office hours happened outside of office hours. This was remember we only had we had pre-show, which was an hour, and post, or maybe we opened it up a little earlier because I think it was before even 6 a.m. Anyway, I'll let you take, but you have to understand that it wasn't in the show. It was like beforehand, and people were kind of working on things. Go ahead.
So in my defense, what happened was I started playing around with Zoom OSC and was getting very excited about it, and I connected it with Companion and was just getting some basic things going back and forth with Companion and Zoom OSC. And so without really looking at who was in the after hours or before the show had started, I just said, hey, people interested, I'll just do a quick demo of Zoom OSC. And so I started stepping through it. And what was funny is that when I started sharing it, we started to get, screen share feedback, right, where it was folding in on itself. And so Andy very politely just jumped in and kind of said, oh, you'll just need to. And I said, it's okay, I got this. It's not my first rodeo. Which in my defense, I knew what to do to stop that and that. But what I didn't realize, and I think it started to kick in, was who I was talking to and who was there, and that I was continued then for the next 5-10 minutes to demo Andy's own product to him. Unbeknowing, there was probably another 15 people in the group at the time that were enjoying the demo, and gracious Andy was like, oh yeah, this is good. I've never had someone demo my own product to me before. So
well, it was really a magical moment for me, as much as we give you a hard time about it. To be, I had just been looking at download forms that had been coming in when people would submit to send the download for Zoom OSC. And there was a question in the download form that said, how did you find us? And they would just write office hours. And if you go to Google and you just type office hours, you're not really likely to end up here right away. And so it took some time. I did some digging. I found an article that Guy had written about his experience being on the show and what that meant to him. I said, oh, this sounds really interesting. So I followed the yellow brick road, right? The pathway through the Zoom into the Mukana, into the Discord, and kind of weaved through to get ready for the pre-show. And just to show up out of the blue and have somebody talking about your work already, clearly familiar with what's going on, and a community of people that are interested in discussing it. It was such a shocking moment for me, just to, on a random occasion, just to show up in a Zoom call and there's, all of these experts looking at this together. It was a very magical moment for me. And it it's amazing, I think, to look at from a macro perspective how my first visit to office hours was defined by sharing, and exploration. And I think that's been reflective of every moment since then. It's always been the group of producers coming together to share their knowledge in a way that I don't think was very common prior to the pandemic. I think there was a lot of holding things close to the chest. And to have my first experience with office hours being that excited, enthusiastic, humble sharing experience among people to explore together and figure that out was set the right tone, I think, for me in the participation with the community going forward. So I'm actually very grateful to Grant for that. And I think it speaks to a lot of the ethos of the community.
Good, Grant.
That's really nice, Andy, and such a beautiful way to put it. And I honestly think that the success of office hours, there's no chance that it would still be going 5 years later if it wasn't for key community guidelines that Alex put in place. And I think really it wasn't, office hours is not the first community that Alex you put together, and I think it shows. So having these guidelines and that were really clear that it's a clean show, which means it's safe for my 3 kids to walk in at any time. They can walk in my office and we can be all discussing, and it's a clean, safe, family friendly environment. No religion talk, no things that are divisive, no political talk, that we didn't need to have any of that, and we don't need to have any of that.
And real names.
And then, right, yeah, real names is key too. Yeah, so totally, real names has been really key all through it. And then, ultimately, there has been a culture of sharing. To your point, Andy, that was significantly different, because we all could have come in holding all of our cards close to our chest, that these are the key tools that are going to make us millions. Instead, Alex set this culture of just sharing probably more than you ever had before, Alex, that set the tone that we were all like, okay, yeah, this is what I found. This is a game changer for me. Have you thought of using breakout rooms in Zoom like this? It's like, and then suddenly a bunch of people doing that. And, the rising tide floats all ships.
And I had learned that because when Google Hangouts came out, we were the white glove service for Google, and we did thousands of their events. And I wouldn't tell anybody anything because I was trying to make payroll all the time. And all I cared about was I don't want to have a bunch of other people undermine my contracts. And we were the best in the world at what we did. And there was no one close, it wasn't like, to do what we did. And I wanted to keep it that way. But the problem is that everyone else failing when they were doing Hangouts was ended up destroying the entire market because once you fail at a live event, you don't want to do another one. And so it was just burning up the atmosphere. And so but I didn't get that until near the end, where I was like, oh, if I ever do this again, I won't do it this way. And it was kind of like it was a brand new tool for me as well. Like Zoom was a brand new tool for me when we started office hours. So I knew some things, but all of this was brand new, and I was figuring it out with everybody else.
Let's go to the next question.
Vic Hernandez is up next from Springfield, Missouri. Do you see office hours becoming a multi-tiered platform that's as easy to use and with support similar to what Zoom currently offers?
Go ahead, Andy.
The way I think about things is product and process as deliverables, right? And so I think what we were just discussing was the way that the community has created a culture in which somebody can come in with a question and talk to a panel of experts and be able to build up that knowledge with any platform that they want, with whatever tools they're bringing to the table, whatever processes that they're using to build this out. It becomes available to them because they can come to this community and ask those questions. And that's created, I think, a feedback loop that's also informed products, right? And actual deliverables and things that companies can provide for people to use. So I look at the community and the production of the show, obviously, as a model. And it's one of, definitely the highest production value Zoom calls that takes place every single day. It's really incredible to look at it from a product perspective. But if you look at the volunteer culture that has produced that show, and then the ability to then take those patterns and apply them to any production, commercial work, volunteer work, house of worship, whatever area you need to bring it into, that's the thing that I think creates that support model, that community-based support. I think it's one of the remarkable hallmarks of this community in the show.
David?
I certainly, and no offense to Alex and the community of 5 years here, but I hope not. I hope that what's been building over the past 5 years remains as gritty and as edge cutting and pushing that envelope forward for as long as possible, because that's where that innovation comes from.
Alex?
Yeah, and I think that in many ways we have many layers. So the morning show that you see is the outer layer. And it's fast paced. It's we're moving through one thing at a time, or we're moving through many things, like covering 20 things per hour or so. If you can just go to YouTube and watch it, and we give you a QR code. You don't have to log into anything to ask questions. So it's designed as a very kind of easy to use pathway there. If you decide you want to sign up and you go to the website and go to officehours.global and /join, which we tell you can do. We tell you where the door is, but there it is. If you want to go through that door, you can go through that door. You sign up there, you start getting emails. Now, if you decide you want to do anything more, then you can go into Makana and start asking questions, voting on questions, chatting on questions. You can join Discord and start to become part of that community. So I think that there are, and then, that's the next couple layers down. And then you can start to volunteer, and then you can be a panelist, and then you can do, so I think that there's a lot of layers already built into what we do from a community perspective, that it can be very easy and very superficial, or it can be something that you're really doing a lot of stuff with people all over the world. And it just depends on where you are in your where you are and what you want to do and how deep you want to go.
And it's that nature, I think, that makes Office Hours so special, because if you want it, you can be a part of this community. If you enjoy what we're talking about, if you have something to contribute, if you're passionate about making things, passionate about communication, then it's all here. All you have to do is, like Alex said, walk through that door. And I came around a little less than 2 years ago, and was just amazed at what this community brings to the table every single day. Let's go to the next question.
John Nichols in Concord, California is up next. And John wonders, did Office Hours always stream to YouTube? And if not, what was the reason to make the change?
Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, so here's the tweet starting right from there. So starting in Zoom, 7 a.m. Pacific, Wednesday tomorrow, live open hours, just talking about production. As simple as that. Register here. I'm only asking for reg so I can get a sense of how many people are coming. If we go over 100, I don't expect to, I will stream to YouTube. So even there, right on the first post, 2020, it was I think down here, Eric Timber said, "Are you going to post after the fact?" I hope so, which is super key, right? To what it was like, and that was the thing for me, is that I once I was after doing it for a few months every single day, once we knew this thing was settling in and wasn't going anywhere, getting the YouTube going was super beneficial to me, because I could catch up during the day as I do now. Put it on 2 times and watch most shows, most daily shows I'll watch when I go for a walk the next day, so it's awesome.
And what's so amazing is that towards the end of that first show, I think Alex says, yeah, I mean, we're going to come around tomorrow at 7, and this is fun. I kind of like the chit chat. If people are enjoying it, if people think this is valuable, we'll keep doing it every day. Eventually we'll get bored.
Yes.
2025. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what I knew at the beginning was that we had to get all together and have a conversation at the same time, because at first it was just answering questions, but very quickly. So at first it was just ease of use, like starting to stream something to YouTube didn't make sense. As we got going, what I knew was that there was a value to having a bunch of people together thinking about something at the same time. And if we did it when we were really small, we would lose the critical mass that we had. So we had a certain number of panelists in there, and we had a certain number of viewers, and all of that would get cut in half, which is exactly what happened. So what we did, but that was fine. But what we did is we kept on growing it until a point where I felt like we can afford to lose half of the people that are here live to have more people be able to watch it later. But I had to know that I knew as soon as we turned it on, we'd have half the number of panelists and half the number of viewers at the same time asking questions. But we had to have a certain number, or it just wasn't going to work. And so I held on to it as long as I could. and then finally turned it on. I also liked the banter of not feeling like everything was going to be recorded. I also, there was a bunch of things about it that I really wanted to kind of keep there. I also, with much of what office hours does, is that I move very, very slowly. And the reason I do that is as soon as I have a bunch of doors that I can see that we could open in the future. But as soon as I open one, you'll see the next one. And then everyone wants to go to the next one immediately. And so I'm always like, okay, let's let this one, keep this one just cracked, and we'll just get a bunch of pieces in place. And then we'll open the next door and go down into the next thing. And it's not time-based, like I'm gonna do this in 6 months. It's, are we mature enough? Do we think we're mature enough to go to do the next thing, right? And so I think that was a big piece of that. But I like the fact, and that's why on the weekends, there's a bunch of reasons on the weekends we don't record. One of them is that it just means that people can come in and feel safe. Like, it's not going to be on YouTube forever if you're still figuring out how to use your system. It's a little bit looser conversation, a little bit more philosophical. We know that someone could record it, but it's not automatically going to be on YouTube. And then finally, there's still this magic that happens, especially when we're talking philosophy and talking around this. There's a magic of having everyone in the same place at the same time, live in the chat, live in the, and I think that there's something that gets lost when you record it, even DVR. Like, there's a value to us all being as close to being in the same room at the same time as we can. And that's what we're trying to reproduce, is that there's a moment, just twice a week, we still recreate that experience where there's a moment where we're all in the same place at the same time, everywhere in the world.
I think another thing that's commendable about that discipline is that the community has been allowed to continue to care about one another and have that volunteer spirit and still be passionate about wanting to show up every single day. I mean, think about it. The 5 years, consecutive days, never missed a show. That doesn't happen if you are greedy, and it doesn't happen if you are trying to go too much too fast. And instead of all that, we have the spirit of helping people, which is pretty powerful. Go ahead, David.
I was just wondering, when the change in branding went from open hours in Grant's initial tweet to office hours, and could that be another show? Is open hours?
I know what we have extra hours.
Show,
we have after hours. We have open hours. Now we have to figure out what does that mean? What does it mean?
I got the record this morning, and it said open hours, and I was like, open hours? What could that be? It's next.
Here's the thing: is probably was just a dyslexic mistake. I'd love to say that there was something deep in it, but I am notorious for bad typing, especially if I tweet it from my phone. I don't see it very well, and probably because I'm pretty sure I meant office hours the whole time. So if I said open hours, it probably was just me mistyping.
Still,
probably the next day.
I'm looking for branding, so there's an opportunity.
But I'm not saying there's not an opportunity. I'm just saying.
Let's go to the next question.
Roscoe Jones, one of our long-timers from Madison, Indiana. If you could go back 5 years and tell yourself something that would help you today, what might that be?
George Kennedy, welcome to the show.
A little bit of a kind of tough question. Definitely, there are days when I feel like I should have stayed the course, which I'm still on course with what we're doing with Zoom ISO and tiles and everything else in the industry, and the trajectory of where the industry is going right now as far as cloud. Obviously, you were seeing a lot more of cloud again. COVID, we kind of fell off a little bit and went back to doing in person, and now we're back to doing it. So I would have told myself, George, stay on the course and really dive into what you were doing with the cloud piece. It's not over. I'm still there, but I would have told myself, stay the course and keep building on it.
David?
Yeah, for me, it's all about taking chances earlier. I know working in corporate, we're very conservative, and you have to prove things before you can push them forward. But my own enthusiasm in doing what I enjoy doing, I think just taking that initial leap of faith would be something I'd do a lot earlier.
Grant?
Yeah, I think it's not necessarily something that I would say that I didn't do, but the encouragement that I will never regret getting up at 1 a.m. and staying up for a couple of hours and being involved in office hours. I'll never regret that. And the other thing is investing in the relationships that we have built here. All the events and projects and things that we want to do, they always rise and fall on the quality of the team that you have around you. And the testament of that has been when the right projects have come up, I've been able to just go on Discord, bang, 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 half a dozen people from office hours, and just know that it's going to work. And it absolutely has been that. And so investing in the relationships has been really key. I'm looking forward to going to NAB. I'm going to NAB in a couple of weeks, and I'll meet a bunch of people that I haven't met in person. But it's been 5 years. It doesn't mean that our relationships haven't been as deep, because I think they are. We've got this great professional and personal relationships that have been built in this place, and so I would encourage Grant to continue to invest into relationships.
Now we've got a great stalwart of our panel every single day, who's always bringing his great perspective and life experience. So welcome to the show, Courtney Gooden. Go ahead.
Hey, CJ, good to see everybody here. One thing, if I could have told myself 5 years ago, get a comfortable chair, because you're going to be sitting there for 2 hours and not leaving. But in reality, I think it gave me something to do, because I had retired just a couple of years before this show started. And I was looking at, I really missed the camaraderie of people on the set. And that was the thing I missed the most, is sharing information, troubleshooting problems on the set, much to the chagrin of my crew members, that having me butt in and say, if you just did it this way, you might solve that problem. And I really missed that. And the fact that this would go on for 5 years and I'd still have the ability to give my point of view, however crooked and crazy it may be, is something that is really fulfilling.
And it's one of the things, if you're around office hours or you watch the show to the end, you'll always hear our hosts close the show with, "We'll see you in after hours." And that's an amazing part of the community that I think, while not broadcast, is an incredible resource as you're getting more involved and as people are getting to know one another. When you go in there and turn your camera on and start talking into a microphone, really, really smart people all of a sudden start showing up and giving you advice and telling you about some things you might try. And I felt like my first 6 months in office hours was like that scene in the Hercules where it's like 0 to hero. Like, I went from thinking I knew what I was doing to all of a sudden really feeling comfortable and having everything at my fingertips and getting it to the point where it went to that lower brain. Like all of the gear and all that other stuff went away, and I was just able to communicate, and I was just able to focus on the message that I was sending. And that is all thanks to the community that's built up around here. Let's go to the next question.
Dave Kaufman in Vancouver, British Columbia, up next. Is Andy using a green screen and Zoom background replacement? Quality is super.
Go ahead, Andy.
I would never commit the cardinal sin of using a virtual background on office hours. I know better. No, so this is an actual set that I've put together. But I do have a trick. I have 3 TVs here that are pulling an NDI feed from outside my house to give kind of a fake window experience. But I want to take the question as an opportunity to look at one of the things that always jumps out to me when I look at old office hours episodes, which is how much the panel video has evolved over 5 years. If you look at the setups from the different contributors, even Alex himself in front of his screen.
Why don't we, real quick, while you're saying that, Andy, I want you to keep going, but we actually have, we'll have to play it muted if we can do that, but we actually have, I think it's number 4 is the disaster group clip, where you can see one of the early galleries within office hours. Guy is there, Bill's there. It's a pretty cool shot, but keep going, Andy. Thank you.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's been one of the benefits that I think the community has brought, has been the ability to learn from each other in terms of the way that we show up. And like Alex mentioned before, academia is finally catching up to this with the article that, he posted on X the other day. But
next question.
Keenan Campbell in Princeton, Illinois says, we just signed up for StreamYard. I've been using this setup for mobile storm updates. My MacBook is a similar system. What are the differences? Ruthless review of my feed link below, and then he has a link to it.
We don't let people in normally in the second, just randomly, but this one is fascinating.
This
and
is
so,
awesome.
yeah, I'm very interested.
Well, and the beauty of this is it was just kind of a proof of concept that I thought, okay, let me try it in my Tahoe. And then my volunteers are all issued 4G LTE FirstNet iPads, so I can bring them into StreamYard and cut to their video.
What's amazing is, and Courtney's in that shot, Guy's in that shot, Bill's in that shot. When you look at at all of those frames, and then look at how much harder everybody's playing today, it's a testament to, I don't think people are necessarily trying to one-up each other so much as they're really getting inspired by people who are taking care about what they look like and what they sound like and how they light things. And like I said, it's good when the people who are around you who are not, they're civilians, right? They're not production people, start asking questions about, well, what kind of microphone do you think I should get? And how should I put up a light? And often I get a similar question to what Dave just posed to Andy, and people are like, man, where did you get that virtual background? Because people are like, man, that looks so good, I can't believe it. Very much similar to Andy. And then I'll get out of the way and say, no, there's a couch back there. Like sometimes I'll go sit on the couch and then, but it's like sometimes you see the light go off inside of somebody that says, oh, Zoom doesn't, or not Zoom necessarily, but virtual communication over a computer remotely doesn't have to be a bad experience. It can be a really great experience. And it's one of the reasons that I get really excited when I see someone who's paying. I was like, hey, have you gone into Zoom and checked that your HD settings are all the way up? Are you using original sound? Have you treated your room? All of those different considerations come in. And it's pretty powerful stuff. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, one of the things that I learned from office hours in that first year was that your appearance on the web matters. And we've said more than a few times, you wouldn't show up at a business meeting in T-shirts and cutoffs. It's just not appropriate for what you're doing. And it took for a while for me to understand your telepresence today is that. This is how people are going to react to you. And so at least taking moderate care to get enough light on your face. I mean, we all saw so many people who's, they were down here talking into a Zoom meeting and they'd spend hours in a professional thing with their face looking like Kilroy was here because they just hadn't taken any time at all. They turned on their laptop and they just say, okay, now I'm on Zoom in the meeting. And, the CEO, the president, everybody else is watching them and making certain judgments based on that. So the simplest thing was take this seriously. This is serious. The Zoomification of our lives is a serious opportunity and potential for not taking advantage of an opportunity. And so it matters.
And when you are ready to take that step and have that discussion, that's when you come into office hours and start asking questions. We're literally open 7 days a week. People go to askofficehours.global when something pops into their head. Folks who are watching the live show pop into Mukana, our back-end system, at officehours.global/join. And that allows people to not only get into our system to ask questions, but also you can chat with the other producers live. And I mean, that's a force multiplier of a community who's built up around the Daily Show. And just every single day. Go ahead, David.
I would say, and it's been an iterative process. So everybody came in looking a little janky, but then as you see everybody looking as sharp as they do, it encourages one to do better or to improve themselves. And imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. I will admit, I know there was one show where I came in from my office with a green screen of this setup behind me and fooled the panel. They couldn't believe that it was an image, and that one I got to remember when it was, but it was fun.
Andy.
And the last thing I'd say on this is that in addition to the community pushing everyone forward to take advantage of a good audio and video setup, I think it's also been a mind share reacting to the technological opportunity that's evolved over the past 5 years, right? I think a lot of the bad audio and video practices that we saw in the mid 2000s came from the fact that this was a horrendously compressed video and audio stream that you really couldn't appreciate, depth of field and much more complex effects, at least on consumer equipment. And now that we've been able to preserve the quality of remote contribution all the way from the camera system into the studio and onto the broadcast, we actually have an appreciable difference in it. We've been able to, as a community, leverage the technical opportunity that has appeared before us over the past 5 years and use that to our advantage to help everybody level up their game.
And Andy, you're no small part of that commitment to making it more than, the 360p iChat video chat experience from, 2005 is what a lot of people, at least in their minds, maybe not in practice, perceive as this is how it has to be. Can you tell me a little bit about your passion for or what you bring to that equation that makes you so passionate about pushing that envelope and always being on the edge of things?
Well, the thing that keeps me going every day is seeing what people will do with it and all the amazing opportunities that producers all over the world from this community and others use this technology for, and the way that they connect to their communities, to their fellow parishioners, to their customers, all sorts of different angles on the same core technology that allows us to connect and have limitless human to human interaction and communicate at an empathetic level. I think that when we have technology that serves that communication process, it opens up a whole nother world. And it's something that I absolutely agree with you, CJ. Everything that we can do to push the quality boundary and to make the workflow more accessible by running these remote contribution tools directly inside of the applications that people are already used to using, or building new tools and new opportunities to be able to bring perspectives from anywhere in the world. I mean, just think about this. We have the opportunity today to bring an expert from anywhere in the world with a high quality audio and video setup to engage in a real-time discussion about any topic, no matter where they're physically located. And I think that changes the way that we communicate. It changes broadcast, it changes events, and it's something I'm extremely passionate about, and I'm glad to have been doing what we're doing to try to advance remote production.
George, go ahead.
Sorry, Andy, I wish I had jumped in before you. That way I don't have to go after you. So definitely, I'm glad I jumped in on this, because this here wasn't here 5 years ago. My background, I just finished this week. So what this group has done is empower me to really, you step up your game, yes, not to compete, but you step up because we all are working in these spaces, whether we're at home or out in the field. These are floating shelves. This is, Andy mentioned, this is a album cover, so I can switch this out at any given time. So you make these spaces into your own spaces, and definitely that's part of what I think. When your clients look at you, you have to be able to push over to them that this is what I do, this is what my space look like, this is what I can do for you also. I think on the tech pieces also, I think sometimes we forget we all are using mixed pre's. I think most of us, and we can't forget noise assist. I mean, my lab I'm in right now is so noisy, extremely, and noise assist on a mixed pre really dumbs everything down. So great points by everyone that talked about everything that we use on a regular basis.
Courtney?
Yeah, I was just kind of looking back, at our backgrounds, and I went the purple way, and our standby slide that we had to put up if we had to step out for a second. I found my original one. This is what it looked like. So we became a little more refined now. Just have the empty chair out there. Not the tab.
And that's it's the great disappearing trick. A lot of us have a switcher that's plugged into, that's feeding our video into Zoom, and we'll take a shot of our chair without us in it, so that we can vanish. I think my first time on office hours, I was definitely intimidated. Not maybe intimidated is the wrong word, but when I looked around at all the frames, I was like, these guys play pretty hard. I got to bring my A game. And so, I mean, I was I built a space, and I'm hanging lights and everything. And then just for comparison's sake, I wore the same shirt today. So this was my original frame that I was so proud of, that I worked hard on. And then within, less than a year after that, I'm building a space. I've about 150 square foot space that, like, this is the office. This is where I'm going to go out to the world, whether it's in office hours, whether it's in a business. If it's a business meeting that I care about, I don't do it from my office. I do it from this room at home, because it was built to make sure that I can get my message across as clearly and powerfully as possible. And Bill mentioned it earlier. This is the digital suit and tie. This is, would you have ironed your pants? Would you have shined your shoes? Would you have made sure that you didn't have anything stuck in your teeth that day and that your breath smelled good and that you got there 15 minutes early and you showed up on time? And you start to put all of those things together, and then you think to yourself, well, what did that cost? In time, in effort. I could put 1/10 or 1/5 the effort that it took to go to that one meeting and make it possible for me to be more impactful in every meeting and be able to do it anywhere in the world. When you are walking around a trade show floor, and we did this at NAB last year, we had a little two-way communication going, and we walked up to a booth, and literally, Grant's there on the monitor that's above the camera lens, and the person that we're about to interview puts their little IFB in, and they're listening to the to Grant ask him a question. And it's like, hey, I'm Grant from Adelaide, South Australia. How are you? And all of a sudden, they were completely shook by, how is this even possible? And then, but very quickly, because of us caring about the way that we're looking and sounding, the conversation becomes very natural and the technology gets out of the way. And one of the things that we do when we go to cover trade shows, when we go to an NAB or we go to a Cinegear or we go to other shows, is we go out and we bring the experience of that show to something that Alex likes to call the 5 nines, 99.999% of people who will never get to go to that show, whether it's because of time, whether it's because of visas, whether it's because of resources, they can't make it there. And we can bring that to the world. And it's all thanks to the volunteers that surround this community every single day. So this is a gratitude marathon for all the incredible work that everyone does every single day. Bill, let's go to the next question.
Roscoe Jones, Madison, Indiana, is back with what has been the most unexpected benefit for you as a result of participating in office hours.
Go ahead, Grant.
Friendship, in a word, because I didn't expect that, and the types of hangouts that we've had in after hours, but even the connection that we've made as panelists on each show, but then what happens afterwards. And so there was other Zoom links get shared around, and suddenly you're hanging out with people for hours and having chats, and so the natural extension of that was when I've been to the States a couple of times, or other places, and been able to meet people, and you just pick up as if you were in Zoom, and it's just, you go out for a meal or something and have these amazing conversations. And so there's so much stuff about the technical and production and events and all that sort of stuff that's amazing, invaluable, but the friendship was surprising.
Yeah, the one thing I think we always find out whenever we do meet in person, and by the way, Grant, I'm really excited that you're going to be at NAB, because it's just, I'm going, and it's going to be great to see everyone, but I'm also going to get to find out how tall everyone is, because we're not all, we have our frames, and we're all roughly the same.
It's the width that I'm concerned about, right? Like I'm able to kind of hide this pretty well, but below the table, it goes much wider than I would be, that I'm super comfortable with, and so the thing that's going to be.
I'm right there with you.
Grant's is much more like a triangle than I thought he was in Zoom. So see how that goes.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, and Tlaloc is really tall, because appearing on the Cinegear as a co-host with him running around Cinegear, I thought I was tall at about 6'3", but I'm looking up to Tlaloc all the time. That was surprising. One thing, one of the most unexpected benefits was the sense of community, which Grant brought up. That was a real unexpected benefit, to be someplace to go every day if I wanted to, where I'd have all these friends there. That's really amazing. And the other thing is it shifted my my circadian rhythms, because I used to stay up till midnight, 1 o'clock, and get up around 8:30, 9. So now I go to bed around 9:30 or so and get up at, about 10 till 6. So it has shifted my whole lifestyle just to accommodate the liveness of this show.
Marty?
Well, yeah, the community is certainly something that was surprising. You work on productions and you work on crew, and every job has a different personality, community, and style of production, and you meet all these people, and when you get to be one of the senior guys, and by that I mean old, you I've worked in so many different verticals of production, from like radio, television, recording studios, live events, sports, news, entertainment, just all these different places. But I've always done that as an audio person, right? It's always been, that's my thing. I do audio. But now, after 5 years of being around all of these amazing people and having all of these discussions and these questions and answers, I can hold my own on just about any topic, with people, in brainstorming and planning and troubleshooting on a set, on a production. It has really expanded my horizons in ways that would not have been possible. It's like, how do you learn all this stuff? Video and color and lighting and, camera shots and production and directing and all of this great stuff. Everything that's important that goes into a production. How do you learn all that stuff unless you get in there and do it? But now I have all of this knowledge that I've been able to amass from all of these amazing people. And that's been really surprising.
And another county heard from, we've got, welcome to the show, Tony Mobley from Noonan, Georgia. Hello, sir.
Hello, CJ. Hello, panel. Hello, Office Hours community. I am very happy to be here. I really don't know where to start when it comes to this question, because there's so much. My first initial interaction, on my viewing Alex Lindsay, was when he was on Meerkat and Blab talking about what he was doing in Africa and showing us all the different things and places. And it was just amazing. So I continued to follow him after that, wherever he was and whenever he put something out, and always tuning into MacBreak Weekly to see what was going on with him and Leo and the whole gang. And at the beginning of the pandemic, I was diagnosed with cancer, so I had to go to get treatments every day. Right when the pandemic started, and I had to go to the hospital where everybody was going who already had COVID and was being treated, and I still had to go to the hospital to get treated. But I was able to participate in office hours in those early days, and I remember very distinctly coming on camera, and I was an absolute mess. I mean, horrible. Behind me were blinds, sun shining through brightly, using a 2012 MacBook Pro, which was only 8 years old at that time, but it was ancient in terms of the way the camera showed me, and it was just awful. And I loved office hours, and I wanted to participate, and I decided that I was going to quit, give it up, because I could not play in that playground. And Mike Andrews, he continued to reach out to me day after day after day after day, and would not let me quit, and would tell me how important it was for me to participate, because he thought I had something to offer and something to say. And I will tell you that this old man dealing with cancer, dealing with a multitude of health issues, was in love with this community and the things that I got to be able to do and participate. And so I'm going to try to make this real brief. So I came in with that 2012 MacBook Pro that was horrible. And I continued, and I slowly but surely started to invest in becoming poor because of the office hours community. And I was able to really get started when the small church that I was dealing with 100 miles away from me needed a way to interact with the membership. And I remember that I started asking questions after questions after questions after questions. And then I started asking questions about, for teachers, because I'm an old retired teacher, special ed teacher who love technology, love using technology with my students. And because of office hours and because of people, not just Mike Andrews, but other people who encouraged me to continue to participate, this small little church in Macon, Georgia, was allowed to be able to speak to the world. And even though they're a few in number, they have a voice that has had an opportunity to speak to the world. I had an opportunity to control a show in England, in Noonan, Georgia, because of office hours. I have had an opportunity to have people on a show that was encouraged by office hours. I made friends that are all over the world. And then last year, when I was really down health-wise, my friend, Clylock Lopez Waterman, drove 3 hours, because he was in North Carolina at that time, drove 3 hours, came to my house, moved my studio into the room that I'm in right now, set this TV up, set up my lights, put all of this stuff in place so that when I was able to get out of the hospital bed that was in this room, I was able to get back on camera and participate. So I don't know how to answer this question in the time that we have left for this show. But what I will say is that it has made a difference in my life. And it's made a difference for the people whom I've been able to help share their ministry, share their thoughts, share who they are. It makes a difference in my family and friends. And I'm very thankful for Alex doing this and all of the people who have shared with me. I've had lunch with Roscoe Jones. He came to the Atlanta area. We had lunch. Liberty White has been over my house several times. Clyde Lopez Waterman has been to my house several times. So I don't know what to say. I'm just glad that office hours exist. I'm glad that I've had the opportunity to meet all of you. And if someone tells you that you can't have genuine friendships through virtual media, I will tell them that they are a liar, because you can. You can have genuine friendships. I have so many friends here that are genuine people who I know care about me and I care about them. I don't want to start naming names, but I got to say Guy Cochran. He's like He's like a little brother who is always encouraging, uplifting, and supported me in the early days of Conversation with Tony Mobley. There's so many people that have Dr. Iddleston. I don't want to get into the name thing, but there are just so many people that have been there for me. And the most important thing that they have encouraged me to think about is that even if you don't have the best stuff, the most important thing is use what you have and be authentic about what you have. And so I'm thankful for that spirit, because it lets me know that a regular person, an old guy, a sick guy, can still participate, contribute, and make a difference in the world. So I'm going to stop talking.
Wow.
Thank you, Officer.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. Go ahead, David.
What did I have to say? I got lost. I mean, Tony just blew it out of the water, so I'm sorry.
It's all good, Guy. You got name dropped, David. You can come back if it comes to you. I'm a little shook myself.
It's funny because Tony stole my answer. I mean, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's funny because I put some little notes over here that says the Tony Mobley Show encouragement, because he's done over 100 shows, but it was in after hours where Tony was talking about just maybe wanting to do a show, and Jonas and I were experimenting with vMix in the cloud, and we're like, "Hey, buddy, you want to do a show? We'll give you the whole platform. We'll lay everything out for you. You just show up. You get a guest and you just show up, and we'll take it from there." And that's where it opened up. So to see this unexpected benefit of, it's lift as you grow. So to hear and see how he's grown and see how he's working with his church, because he sends me YouTube links to his sermons. So he's got a really great church following group, and it's fascinating just to watch the evolution of and how great he sounds. We're using the same microphone, so I know he sounds good because you're both using the same tools. But that's the thing, is these are just tools at the end of the day. I know David Paskin was in there jokingly saying we've always tried to one up each other. And it's like, hey, I got this mic and this preamp and this. Some of us are using CMITs. John Wallace was in here with a $2,200 shotgun mic. Some of us have come in with expensive cameras and whatnot, but it really is the message. And I appreciate you, Tony, sharing what you've shared, because these tools are about communications and the reach that we have, and it's so powerful.
Go ahead, George.
Community. For one that ran a user group in the DC area here, physical user group, definitely going virtual was unexpected for me, and how much I've gained over the years. I have a saying in the industry that I work with, and this saying is really to keep folks calm, keep things calm. You know what you know, and I know what I know, right? We're not competing against each other. It's about community building. I said to my college going son a few days ago, because we all struggle with it sometimes, is, hey, this curriculum this professor is teaching, it's kind of blah, blah, blah. But I said, son, it's his curriculum. He's teaching you what is video, but you take what he's teaching you and you build on it. Once you get past that stage and you learn what you need to learn, then you put your own swagger in it, put your own twist in it, but it's all the same, So what you know, and I know what I know. So for me, office hours was all about community. There's a whole lot of smart. Andy's probably the smartest guy in the room right now, but we all have been able to benefit from Zoom and harness a lot of his technologies. It doesn't mean that we have to look at him or he look at us in a certain way. You know what you know. I know what I know by implementing what Andy has taught me. So it's a community, and that's what I've learned and what I've benefited from office hours.
David, I hope you've gathered yourself, because I'm still working on it.
I have, sorry. And I got lost in the emotion of Tony as well. And thank you, Tony, for sharing that honesty with. But I think it goes beyond community to that next level of more like a family, because, I admit I haven't been around or on the panel in a while. And yet when I put the word out to CJ, he's like, would love to have you on there. And it's that ability to to stray from the path and still find your way home and have a welcoming spot to be the door to come through or a box to get in. And that's really important in more so at the early days of the pandemic when everybody was isolated and couldn't leave the box. But developing those friendships and that family-like community out of it, I think, has been the most unexpected benefit to me.
For me, it's a lot about the different perspectives that everyone brings. Like, I've learned a lot of non-technical, softer skills in ways to approach a problem or ways to manage a meeting or ways to communicate with people. You know, I've had the same job for a pretty long time. And, you know, sometimes you get, when you're in an organization and you're kind of have your blinders up, you don't see and experience all those other things. Since office hours is 100% volunteer, people come in from all different sorts of perspectives, all different walks of life, all different sets of life experiences that are all so rich and all have so much to offer that I find myself becoming a more well-rounded speaker and a more well-rounded individual as a whole as a direct result. And that was not, you know, I came here because I wanted to be a part of a community that cared about looking good on a camera and communicating. And what I'm leaving with is feeling like a much more whole person, if that makes sense. And it is amazing that all those life experiences come in every single morning. I mean, we average 7 or 8 panelists every single day. And all of those people come in with different life experience, different perspective, and they do it freely. And that's just one of the ways that people volunteer and help out around office hours. People volunteer not just on the panel, but there's a tremendous village of people that is required to run the show. There's at least 10 people every single day who are actively in roles making the show run. There's people all around the show who are working on trying to figure out, well, what are we going to do for a special show? And how should we figure out a way to engage with more panelists? And what do we think we need to do to make the show better? All of those things are happening because people care. And that volunteer aspect is such an important part of the community. And you can officehours.global/volunteer is where you can sign up for that. If the bug has been, if this doesn't get you the bug bit, I don't know what will, because it is a really powerful group. And when you see it in person, it is like family. But it's also 100% volunteer funded, which is another thing that's pretty remarkable. We literally run on the donations of the community in order to keep doing what we're doing every single day. And that's a pretty powerful thing, that when you think about people saying, I care enough about this thing that I acknowledge that I'm getting a lot of value out of it. I feel like I want to put value back in. And then they go to officehours.global/donate, and they say, hey, here's what I can do. I'll give you $5 a month, $10 a month, whatever. What was the value to you is the way that I like to think about it. There's been a couple times where I was like, okay, hey, this has made a big impact to me. I really sincerely want to give back. But then when you zoom out and you think about what that means that this community is willing to do that, it's pretty incredible stuff. Let's go on to the next question.
Craig McFarland's up next, and Craig wonders, what part of office hours surprised you, how it worked out?
I go ahead, Grant.
That NAB coverage last year was pretty surprising. So the way that, particularly as CJ, you mentioned before, I was hosting and being able to talk to people that were sitting at the booth, even that would come and sit, and then we'd just have a chat, was pretty amazing. And so I think we often talk about all the volunteers that make it all happen, but that was a stretch, I think, for everyone, right? Because then there was people on site that had to do a bunch of stuff, and there was some sponsors that were chipping in a decent amount of cash to make that happen, and so all of that, when we sat back, it was one of those times where the quality output of the show was not the only indicator or the only outcome, because because you could watch some of that and go, oh, gee, that was a bit rough, or, this isn't a great show, or whatever you want to say. But at the end of the day, all of us were like, this net result is amazing because we made so much of it work, and there was all these systems that kind of went into making it happen, and it's made us all think, yeah, it's a great shot. CJ,
and for anybody who wasn't there, this is literally, we were walking around NAB, and at times we had the gallery up, at times, Grant filled the screen, but there he is, there's Guy, there's Courtney, and they're talking to folks on the floor. Bill's on the ground as a host there. And this sort of coverage that we were able to do was able to bring kind of the magic of being at an NAB there's Bill, to all of the people around the world who that 99.999 who just couldn't be there. And it's one of the missions that we always talk about, is that global conversation where no one's left out. That doesn't happen only in person. It has to happen online, because if people are going to be there, or if people can't be there in person, then here's how they get brought into the fold, which is pretty cool. Guy, go ahead.
So some people may argue that this wasn't something that worked out, because in some ways didn't work out, but in a lot of ways it did. I'm talking about Mad in the Kitchen. So Mad in the Kitchen, the big thing that really reminds me of community is there was more people in the back end Zoom. There was 170 people at one point watching the production, and there was only like maybe, I don't know, 60 people on Zoom. So we, just the community, were watching a production being built. And to me, that was just fantastic to see how many people wanted to learn and were interested in production. So that exercise of people setting up cameras in their own kitchens and contributing that way. So it forced them, some people really went whole ham and all out. And so it forced them to get good audio, borrow, steal second cameras to get overhead shots. So to me, that was a huge win, one of the biggest, I think, out of the community, even though it didn't go to air, which is, I think, would have been the holy grail. But seeing somebody like Nate remote cut that show, it proved that it could be done. And that led to other things. So a lot of doors opened because of it. And then a little graph that this all reminds me of is Tony Robbins talks about the 6 human needs and their certainty. So office hours really has brought a lot of this. I wonder why people stay and why people go. And there's certainty here: growth, uncertainty, connection, contribution, and significance. And it's a wonder why, that we've carried on this long. And some people have fallen out, but it's that we fulfill a lot of the human needs, and it happened during COVID, but it still carries on. I know a lot of people have gotten back to work, but it really struck me as to how much that the community and the contributions are what makes it sticky.
Andy?
Find the clock back to 2021 when we were looking at how to make a regular show out of what we had just been doing from streaming from Zoom directly. And Alex had me come out to 3210 back when I was with Liminal, and just talk to me about, what he wanted from the structure of a production like this. I'm like, wow, that's going to be an interesting task, Alex. You've got, 16 people you want to bring into a hardware switcher, and you want to be able to do it with, remote operators anywhere in the world. And that's going to be an interesting task. And we started pulling pieces off the shelf, right? So we had, I had been building customized interfaces for Victor Cajallo for his Sunday Sax Jam. That was like a dedicated piece of glass that you could remotely cut the cameras in his studio. And TJ was working on that, and that was really interesting. And then Jonas had come across the Cloudflare quick tunnels, and I had been working with some of the Universe guys. So we built our first, dedicated interface specifically to cut office hours and put it behind a URL that anybody could access anywhere in the world from an iPad or their desktop computer, and cut a show in a way that didn't require deep knowledge of the underlying hardware and software infrastructure. We started tying together different vendors. So we got Tricotronics to come to the table and start working on feature requests that we had for them. We had, like I said, Universe came in and they helped us do some things with the web panel. We had Adam Tao come in and work on building an entire bidirectional communications API for Mix Effect that allowed us to use the SuperSource system, so that when people raised their hand in Mukana, it drew custom SuperSources off of that data. And so we started bringing all of these developers to the table to collaborate on this project. And it really, the scope of it is quite incredible when you think about what is done every single day. And then after we joined Zoom and kind of handed that back to office hours from an infrastructure perspective, there came that community again of volunteers coming in to take over and continue the development, and all the people who meet, every week to talk about the show and the structure of the show and how to make it run so smoothly. I mean, if you were to describe it to somebody from square one, it's a Herculean effort. And so it's certainly one of the things that surprised me most is that, not only does it runs every single day and runs super reliably. And then you look at, the incredible generosity of John Wallace and his ability to, pull all that together because of the openness of that system and let the show migrate to there. Another great surprise, right, for us, but not entirely unexpected, right, because of the openness of that approach and the ability to put all the knowledge out there so it comes back and it pays dividends later in the future. So I think that's been really wonderful. And then now we're in this next kind of chapter for office hours. We're exploring other methods of production. So we've got, what we're doing with Vector in the cloud. We've got the one-man band, David Paskin, doing everything inside of Ecamm directly and cutting a multi-person panel conversation off of his computer all by himself. I mean, that's truly incredible to me. We have the work that's been done with mimoLive. I mean, all these different systems. And for me, what makes me proud is that all of those tie in back to Zoom, and Zoom is directly integrated into all of those tools so that you can work in whatever way you want, dedicated hardware systems, cloud software, or a program on your laptop, and be able to build a show like that.
And since you're too modest to admit it, I've also got to say that we're always pushing what is the limit of the things that we can do right within Zoom and Zoom Production Studio. We run our Sunday show on that just to constantly be seeing what's possible. And you've been incredible in working with us on that. You also let us play with some of the early stuff with Zoom tiles. This was another shot from NAB where there was a custom Zoom interface where we were integrating with, Grant's in Australia, Courtney's in LA, Ronnie's in Hollywood, Guy's in Seattle, Craig Kadoki's in Toronto. You've got Adrian Watkins is in New Zealand, Blue Melnick's in North Carolina, I believe, and then Robert Green's also in LA, and we're all having a conversation as if it's nothing. Just really, really cool stuff. Go ahead, Courtney.
One thing I was going to mention Mad in the Kitchen and Sky Gleason producing that and how that all came together. But one thing that hasn't been talked about yet, as we look back on our past, I was really surprised at how well it worked out. And unfortunately, I wasn't talented enough to participate in it, but I enjoyed watching the results, is the remotes. Bill Davis editing together the music videos and our own collection of very talented musicians that have participated on office hours over the years, and producing not an original song, but their version, a cover of a song, with everyone contributing and editing together into a video. I was really surprised at how great it sounded and how great the results were. So cheers to the Remotes band. We remember them well.
Bill?
Absolutely. That was one of the outstanding things I was involved in. I just, to the NAB coverage really quickly, I'm looking at the future too, and I'm seeing how we were when we started, the remote stuff we did at Cinegear, all these experiments, what Andy's been doing at Zoom in terms of integrating the ability to do what you just saw, which is come live from a show floor with all these people from all over the world. And we know kind of where it's going, which is eventually you're going to be someplace with a laptop and a couple of phones or whatever, and you can participate almost as much as you can participate in your office anywhere and connect with anyone and get your ideas, and more than your ideas, get an actual production at a high level created and distributed for all the people who need to see it. It's just almost unlimited what we're going to be able to get to.
Let's go to the next question.
Next question comes from Jeremy Horn in the San Francisco Bay Area. I wonder how many successful events, great connections, career paths, dollars made, and dollars spent owe it all to office hours.
Go ahead, George.
So the dollar spent is all of this in the background, the mics. So definitely office hours contribute to a whole lot of that. I would say events, I think, and Grant kind of hit on this last night also, I think a lot of us really did well during COVID. And I mean, it's almost weird to say it, but I definitely made good income during COVID. So I'll just hit on those two.
Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, I think most people would know that I met Blue Melnick on office hours, and so it was one of the earlier shows in April. Blue had spoken to Alex and was doing a larger meeting in Zoom. He needed to get 1,200 people in Zoom and wanted it in Zoom meeting and to be able to see all the faces, and so was trying to work out how to do that. And so the show happened. That was the first event. And we got Blue on as one of the first second hours, and Blue just sort of talked through this event that was going to be 300 people in person and turned out to be 1,200 people in Zoom, and started talking it through. And I had mentioned a couple of things to him, and I was playing around with companion triggering PowerPoint slides remotely. And so he hit me up actually on Facebook at that point, Facebook Messenger, and we went back and forth. And I said, "Oh, can I help out with an event that you might be doing? I can do an overnight shift for you because it's daytime for me." And I did that. And for a couple of days, I was working on some stuff and came up with some ideas. Hey, what if we were to do this? And I've been playing around with the Zoom API, and maybe they could tweak this a little bit, and the rest is history. We started Obvio at that point, and now we're 5 years into Obvio. So yeah, it's as far as all those things, that's just one example of a company that was formed directly as a result of office hours and cross country an international company immediately because of office hours. I don't think that would have happened, only that we were kindred spirits, obviously, and that's how we connected so well.
I don't think about it so much as dollars spent, although office hours does help you spend dollars for sure, because it's kind of a red pill conversation. It opens your eyes to things that you had no idea were possible, and then you feel like you can't unsee them. You have to address it. You have to move forward. But there's not a dollar that I've spent as a result of office hours that I haven't truly felt like it was anything less than an investment. It was an investment in myself. It was an investment in the messages that I want to give people and the ideas that I want to move forward. And it's been a dojo of sorts in terms of getting to just constantly practice how I communicate, practice how these systems work, and be ready for the brutally honest and loving, ruthless review that's going to come after that says, hey, that was great, but we're not going to focus on that stuff. Here's how you're going to just keep moving forward. And it's not out of a bad case of stinking thinking that we focus on that stuff, but it's because we always know that we want to keep moving through that door and keep getting better. Next question.
Don Sweeney in Long Beach says, 5 years ago, how different was your system to what you have today? I recall joining from an all-in-one unit, a Cisco DX80, long since retired to ewaste.
Go ahead, David.
Well, at the onset of pandemic, at work, we were still migrating and combining the two companies because we were merged. We were a Cisco shop back then. They sent me home at one point with a Cisco 650, which I still have. I don't know if it still works, but yeah, we've seen a lot of e-waste of Cisco gear go out the window. I think in the 5 years since, though, things have improved considerably. The cost has gone down. The temperature has gone down too.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, my setup hasn't changed too much. I was being a video playback engineer for a lot of my career. I had a lot of equipment sitting in the shelf that I was willing to rotate in and out. And I eventually arrived I have an ATEM television studio, the first switcher that they came out with from Blackmagic. And then I have a television switcher HD. And then I got the ATEM Mini, but that didn't work quite as well as the ATEM Mini Pro came out, and I replaced it with that. And I've pretty much stuck with that. It has been able to fill the bill for the last 3.5 years or so. And I've been through a number of mixers. I had a Samsung mixer, MX Pro FX, something that had, I annoyed everyone with the special effects that it would do and add in echo occasionally to my voice, and occasionally I still do it here, the sound pad. But it has settled down. I probably got more people to buy the Stellar X2 microphones than anybody else, I guess. They showed up for a while here. I'm still using mine. I really like the sound of it. And we all enjoyed watching Paul Wallace go through more microphones than is humanly possible to own.
Tony?
So I already shared with you guys that I started out with a 2012 MacBook Pro, 8 years old, and this is what I am now. So
It's quite the investment.
4 computers, Howell PR40 microphone, Stream Deck, ATEM Mini Pro, 2 iPads, a Switch. I'm probably leaving something else out, but you guys get the idea. This is a long way from where I started.
It really embodies the there's a little bit of a buy once, cry once. Guy likes to say that a lot. I guess we all do, because when you start getting serious, you start appreciating all those little things. Let's go to the next question.
David Arsenault in Bonaventure says, I want to congratulate you and want to thank you for your advice in the last few months. With your help, I managed to stream a hockey tournament in 2 different arenas, controlling one remotely via pan-tilt Zoom, mimoLive, and a joystick.
That, David, is the epitome of why we show up every day, because we want to bring what's possible to as many people as possible. So that way, they can keep learning and keep growing. And whether it's in sports, whether it's in a meeting, whether it's just trying to figure out what is the next great accelerator, we come here to learn about those tools. Someone in the chat mentioned that Tony Mobley's referred to office hours as a blessings multiplier. And it's really what it feels like, because you think about what's possible in ways that you didn't before, and then you can't help but the next time you look around start to take in one of those things or some of those things. Just really, really incredible stuff. Next question.
One of our friends from the back end, Raj Chandel in Los Angeles, says, as we look to the future, what bold, quote, here's to the crazy ones ideas can we throw at office hours to truly take it global?
Something that we've talked a lot about is in terms of the what's next for office hours, has been a lot of how do we do more trade show coverage, how do we bring more events to people around the world, but also how do we take the education aspect of what we're doing every single day and codify that in some sort of program, get amass enough of a following and enough dollars to put behind it so that we can open up a training of, hey, let's have a back and forth and talk with someone who's directing and who's lighting and bring some of the magic of the Q&A interactivity that the morning show brings every day, but bring it to more practical sorts of trainings where you're learning about a specific thing, as opposed to something that we try to encapsulate in just a few minutes. Next question.
Josh Kaufman, our friend from Philadelphia, wonders, compare office hours to a typical community user group.
Josh, we didn't mean it. We know that you're a Yinzer. We love Pittsburgh. Go ahead, George.
So, as I mentioned earlier, as one that ran a user group, I don't think there could really be a comparison. Office hours obviously has a global reach. There's no other place I know that you can meet with all these folks from around the world and then meet at NAB at the same time, whoever shows up there. So I think in that aspect, there's no comparison, but definitely the global reach.
And it's something that I've said a lot tonight, but I'm going to keep repeating it. It's simply the most unselfish group that I've ever encountered. It is people who genuinely want to help one another, and who really enjoy what they're doing. And as a result, we have this incredibly robust group of people who really do feel like family. Tony, you had mentioned Mike Andrews earlier, and a lot of people within this community were really deeply saddened when he passed away. Same with, look at how much of the back end structure of how we run a show every single day was impacted by all the contributions and ideas that came from Dennis Champion Walker. There's another person who, when he passed away, it did not feel like some stranger on the internet that you didn't know. It felt like someone who you were really close to and really had an impact on you. And that's something that I don't think you find that sort of connection just in every user group. Bill?
Yeah, both with Mike and with Dennis. Those were moments of surprise and shock for me, because here I was on this panel that I've been doing for a while, and I like the people and things like that. I didn't really realize how much connection I had to these people until suddenly one day I said goodbye to Mike on the air as he popped into the show. And then the next day I heard he had passed away in the middle of a surgery, and I just literally felt the air around me disappear. And it was a moment where I realized these are not just fake internet friendships. I'm having genuine emotional connection with people. And when we lost Dennis after his difficulties, his long difficulties, and, you know, we were close enough where I had seen some of his individual things from the nursing home where he was at the end of his life. And it was a genuine loss. And that was when, for me personally as an individual, I realized that this virtual thing can be as real to people as their day-to-day connections in real life. It felt that way. It is no different. You're not going to be that way with everyone you connect with through shows like ours. But boy, it is real when it does happen. And when you find that kindred spirit, which this platform, this thing we do coming together every day and learning about each other deeply, it really initiates those kind of deep feelings that make it more real than I would have ever guessed.
Let's go to the next question.
Next question comes to us from Lois Richter in Davis, California. The 5th anniversary is usually the Wood, W-O-O-D celebration. Maybe for us it might be the Wood, W-O-U-L-D celebration. What would you do today that might be celebrated in another 5 years?
Go ahead, David.
I would like to continue to pay it forward, as I have been from day one. When I first showed up, I remember JJ needed a mixer. I was getting rid of one. I shipped it out sight unseen. And just recently with Guy, sent him some gear that I had that, you know, that's kind of what I do. And if anybody wants a Cisco DX650 phone for their shelf, I got one right here. Free. I'll just ship it to you.
I think that's a lesson that we all are taking away from this, and whether we were cognizant of it or not, is that the pay it forward mentality really is embodied in the spirit of what we do every day. And it's that helpfulness that I think keeps driving us forward. And I hope that today I can somehow make an impact on people that in 5 years from now they're going to remember, and maybe was something that put them down a different path, or they made a different decision, whether it was investing in themselves or believing that they could do something that they thought that they couldn't. It's so much more. This community is so much more than just answering questions about media and production 7 days a week. We say it at the top of every show. But the impact of the spirit of the show, I think, is a good deal larger. Let's go to our last question from the audience, and then we'll wrap it up here tonight, guys.
Marty Atias, Silver Springs, Maryland, gets the last question in this particular show. Zoom has achieved tremendous development since the beginning of the pandemic. How much was due to office hours? Was there a lot of communication with them?
Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, Andy had to step away, which is probably good. We can speak freely about Zoom. No, you
We
know,
love Andy.
I heard a story early on when I was talking to some of the Zoom guys right at the start, because with Obvio we were having to spin up these huge amount of Zoom meetings, and one of the key things we needed is more limits on our API daily limits, and so we had to we were asking for some adjustment on that, and they looked after us there. But one of the things we were talking about is how fast Zoom was growing right at that time. And I remember this story where they were like, we just couldn't get enough servers, and so we went to Oracle and said, we need some servers, and they were like, oh, okay, how many? And Zoom said, all of them. What a place to be, where it was like, we just need all of them. And the dude that I was talking to at Zoom used to work at Oracle, and he was like, and that's how I got a job at Zoom. It was like, that's how I know. So my point is that I think that Zoom was growing incredibly fast, and what was happening is some of those features that they were adding, I think, let's be honest, us doing production on Zoom is a fraction of what Zoom does day to day, right? Like it's mostly business meetings and personal meetings that are just going on. But because they were looking at those things that were like things that would help, some features that would help with everyday commercial customers, they were the sorts of things that we started using and thinking about in ways. So I think it's actually there's been a little bit, and certainly the fact that Zoom bought Liminal, acquired Liminal, is a huge testament that they were listening to our industry and saying they need to grow in this particular area. So they acquired not just some great products, but some awesome people, in Andy, and so I think they really have listened, and they've continued to do some great stuff. And a massive, we were saying not to talk about Zoom before, as in like, but the thing is that every single day, we've been connecting, and sometimes hundreds of people connecting into Zoom. I mean, I hate to think some of the bandwidth charges alone, even on our extra hours, our after hours event that just keeps chugging over, and just 24 hours a day, we've just got all this bandwidth going in and out all over their network, which I'm sure is small to them, but it's still a cost. And I think we had that one time where we were like, okay, something's going on with Zoom, let's quickly go over to Google Meet. And never did we do it again for multiple reasons. But so I don't think that we can celebrate 5 years of office hours without a massive shout out to Zoom. That's totally made it possible. So here's to Zoom.
Courtney?
Yeah, a lot of people didn't realize for a long period of time there, we had a secret backdoor into Zoom. And John Idelson, who was a frequent panelist here and participated in a lot of the cooking shows, his wife is wonderful. His son was one of the head engineers at Zoom. I'm not sure what his position was, but he was fairly high up. And we would mention things during the office hours. Wouldn't it be great if Zoom did this? And I think John was taking notes all along and passing them over to his son. And sooner or later, a couple of weeks later, hey, they added this feature that we've been interested in. And so our secret backdoor to Zoom, I think, has helped it along and helped us along in the process.
Bill?
Well, and just the 20,000 foot thing, the pandemic was disruption. It disrupted everything. Zoom was there, and I think people mentioned in the earlier part of the show, Zoom was on some of our radars, but it was a small thing. I'd used it with a school district or something like that. We weren't very serious about it. Suddenly, we're all homebound. We need to find a platform, and Zoom was there. And then sometimes it's just serendipity. You're going to find people, you're going to be in a place, and you're going to suddenly connect and go, oh, wait a second. you know, who's this guy Andy that showed up and I got to ask, read questions for, and you know, you just see this guy has an interesting mind and he's really good at this stuff. And the next thing you know, he's working with Alex, and some of that stuff gets rolled into the show. And you can't plan some of these things. That's why I brought up the term serendipity. But you do, the old saw about you need to be ready when something changes, when there's a disruption. And boy, has office hours been the primary process for me to be ready enough so that when a giant disruption like the pandemic came along, it shifted the course of almost everything that I do, along with other factors that were changing already. But it just put us suddenly in a place where I don't have to be afraid of this stuff. I don't have to feel like I'm being left behind. I'm not going to watch the industry evolve beyond me. Why? Because of my family here at office hours. I'm going to go on there every morning and I'm going to come away knowing enough so that I can converse with the people who really know how this stuff works and benefit both personally and all my connections from the fact I'm learning every single day about this stuff.
Go ahead, David.
I'll just add that I look at it as more of a symbiotic relationship between the office hours community and what Zoom does, where, as Courtney said, the requests that we put to Zoom are presented to them. They feed them back to this community, which shakes them out, kicks the tires, make sure, and then asks for the next thing. So it's a constant, it's like one of those perpetual energy machines, in my opinion.
So that's gonna get us into the part of the show. We're gonna put the landing gear down. We're gonna start to come in for a smooth descent. But I did want to give everybody a chance if they had any parting words for this tremendous celebration of 5 years of office hours. Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Alex. Thank you, community members. I believe that office hours makes a difference in the world because it makes a difference in us. And it encourages us to try to do our best. I receive fully this idea of presenting your best self as you can on camera. And it's one of the things that I try to share with the house worship that I work with. You know, this is your suit and tie. This is your nice dress and your big hat. This is whatever you want to do to present yourself to make a good impression. This is an opportunity to do it. So I thank everyone, the office hours community, for being who you are authentically.
Courtney?
Yeah, this is truly a global concern here. I was really amazed that we had people here live from all over the world contributing, from South Africa and from down under with Grant, all of the Australians down there. It's been truly amazing that we can have these conversations back and forth as if we were sitting in the same room, and it's been a great global event, as we've called it over the years, a global conference. And I want to thank Alex and all the participants, especially those that are working tirelessly on the back end to keep the power on right now when we've blathered on for almost 2 hours now. So thanks to all of the little people who help put this show on in the background, and we're going to thank them as the credits roll at the end. But I did want to give you a peek at the next technology that Office Hours is going to have coming up, which is live satellite communication that can be run from just one person, if you remember this from Saturday.
Guy, give us
it'll be
your,
Starlink instead of the head-mounted sound.
Guy, why don't you give us your final thought?
A lot of thanks to the volunteers that have worked on this show over the years. A lot of them, they don't get seen. I mean, I'm here in the limelight, these nice big soft boxes, and get to get up in front of everybody. But really, it's the back end crew that makes this thing happen every day. And I just look forward to more of this safe place to fail, is what I call it. Because even today, like, my audio was messed up. It wasn't my fault. But little things like that, it's okay here. It's not okay. But this show, as it evolves, it's a pleasure to be part of something where, as we go into the cloud, you're going to see a lot of stuff at NAB. Jonas showed a sneak peek today on the Here to Record channel. There is some very exciting things that are happening with being able to cut in the cloud. So I'm super thankful for this platform and the ability to help others and lift as we grow.
Thank you all so much for being here tonight. Thank you to our back-end crew who were very gracious in letting us go long so that we could have this tremendous piece of gratitude to give to you and to everybody who helps out every single day on the back-end show. To the folks who helped produce this show specifically, thank you to John Preto, to Craig McFarlane, who helped me get some of the statistics at the top of the hour. Thank you to Jonas, who helped me with some of the graphics getting into the show. Thank you to Mickey and to JJ and to John Wallace for helping me talk out a little bit of the structure. Thank you so much to Taylor Sunderhouse, to Jeff Keithley, who are keeping all this running in the background. Not only that, but also helping me get everything prepared and make sure everything was working. It's truly the village that is making this ship run. And there's no way that we couldn't do it without all of the panelists coming in every single day, without all of the volunteers who are volunteering their time, without all the people who are showing up at officehours.global/donate and helping contribute to make sure that the show keeps going forward, to the producers who are asking questions every single day. It's a true blessing to be a part of this community. And if you're still around right now, I hope to see you in 5 years. And as a special treat tonight, we're going to give you a little bit of maybe the clairvoyance that Alex had as he closed out the very first office hours and said, maybe we're going to do this every single day. Tulalak Traversal today is 29,000 miles. That's 47,000 kilometers, 232 million bananas for scale. I'll throw it to Alex, and we'll see you in after hours.
Great job,
We'll figure this out because I'm going to do this every day, and I am right now. I'm just like I just turned it on to see what would happen, and everyone showed up, and it's been a useful conversation. I don't know. I've been enjoying the conversation, so we'll just keep doing it, and then it'll slowly find a format, and then we'll think it's tired and old and do something else. So anyway, but for now we'll have some fun. I can only get through so many questions, and we'll go on tangents. The goal here is not to have it be we've got time right now. I don't know how long, but even when it ends, I think it'd be kind of fun to just keep going, and we'll see. There'll be certain days that I'm in production that I can't be here, but I was even thinking about just maybe we set it up and have somebody else run it, so we all can sit there and talk amongst ourselves when I'm not around, but hopefully it's useful for folks. And I may, I just think that like a daily thing of us all talking about stuff would be kind of fun. So anyway, I want to thank everybody thank everyone for coming. I didn't quite expect 40, 50 people. I thought, well, there'll be 10 and we'll just have like a little conversation. So anyway, if it's useful, we'll keep on doing these. If I don't get to something or we don't get to something, we'll get to it the next day. And I'm going to figure out some way that people can post questions or even build a little forum that we can talk between them as well, and then bring up things that we want to talk about. But I'm going to try to do it I have a tendency to scale things very fast. And so I want to try to keep it organic for a little while before we go crazy. So anyway, thank you. And I will see you guys, or some of you, tomorrow. Bye-bye.